Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First for the Crown Minerals Permitting in Crown Land Bill first reading, introduced by Minister Phil Heatley yesterday in the House. New Zealand First will be supporting this bill through to committee stage, but like some of the other opposition parties, we do have some concerns in some respects to it, but there are areas where we do fully support it. This bill is all about the natural resources and the Crown-owned minerals of our nation, which is a very, very important part of our economy. We do recognise, New Zealand First does recognise, that economic development and economic growth is required for our country to succeed and prosper and for the benefit of the people of New Zealand. And therefore it is most important that we get this right, and it's most important that this Parliament passes legislation to get this right. And in terms of Crown Minerals, we heard from the Minister that since 2008 there have been something in the order of $2 billion in royalties paid to the Crown, which is a very, very significant amount of money, about the same amount of money as the taxes that the national government gave back to the wealthy and the rich, but it is a huge amount of money. And so we do have to be very cognisant of the fact that royalties from our extensive potential mineral wealth in this country will have a significant impact on the prosperity of the people of New Zealand. Mr Speaker, we are supportive of the fact that there will be a two-tiered system for the permit management, so that the higher risk, higher value minerals, where there is perhaps more significant effects, will have a higher level of permit management requirement, rather than those that are of a lower risk and lower value, which do not present the same effects. Non-compliance will also have swift and decisive action possible under this Act, and therefore that is a good thing, that non-compliance will be acted on, and there is swift decision-making to address that. It will also have a process to sift out applicants that do not meet the standards, and will basically vet applicants in a sensible manner in the early stages, so that people do not waste time, do not waste a Resource Management Act time, do not waste a lot of Crown time or ministry time or time of the courts, environment courts or whatever, in terms of applications that simply won't fly. It is interesting, Mr Speaker, that the bill includes a requirement to report the engagement with iwi and hapu. It's called the iwi engagement report each year. We were wondering whether the iwi engagement report was another name for the engagement between the National Party and the Maori Party, because they seem to have a very much of an iwi engagement between those two parties. And we do wonder if this sort of iwi engagement, had it been in place in some other legislation, such as was around the state-owned enterprises with the sale of the power companies and the energy companies of the country, had there been a bit more iwi engagement, perhaps the government today wouldn't be in its embarrassing situation of the water rights issues with the rivers of New Zealand with iwi and hapu, and perhaps had there been more iwi engagement in the early days, the government wouldn't find itself in strife now, wondering how it is going to succeed with its asset sales program, when basically most of those power companies now are subject to potential court litigation by iwi and hapu throughout New Zealand. Mr Speaker, this bill streamlines the system for industry and community consultation. The aspects of that in this bill are good in that it provides for and ensures community consultation in relation to Crown Minerals. It also complements the exclusive economic zone bill and act that was put in place just a few weeks ago in this House, that came from the Local Government Environment Committee, in terms of the 200-mile zone and our continental shelf. And in that respect, this is most important, that this is complementary to that in terms of the potential of minerals in the economic zone. And an example of that, again, to support our economic development in this country, we were given illustrations at our Select Committee of the vast potential out there in the economic zone, if it is done environmentally and sustainably, so that as not to affect the environment in any major or significant way. And one of the aspects that I certainly noted was the likes of the Chatham Rise between Canterbury and the Chatham Islands, and that vast Chatham Rise, which is one of the world's largest depositories of phosphate and has sufficient phosphate there. Even if only 1% of the Chatham Rise is mined and taken, it would make New Zealand 100% self-sufficient in superphosphate for our agricultural industries, which would be a huge, huge bonus for New Zealand to be able to do that, compared to at the present time when most of our phosphate comes from Morocco and Algeria and other sources, which you never know what those sources are going to be like in years to come, and where our agricultural system is so dependent on those sorts of fertilisers and things, that to become self-sufficient in those minerals would be a huge bonus for our economy. And there will be many other examples such as the same. However, Mr. Speaker, New Zealand's first position is always that while we do support economic development, and we want to see appropriate development of the minerals in this country, and New Zealand does sit on significant mineral reserves, we want to ensure that it is done in an environmentally sustainable manner. It must be done in an environmentally sustainable manner because we are but the temporary guardians of New Zealand. We are very fortunate to be in a very unique part of the world, one of the most remote countries, in a sense, in the world, in the South Pacific. And we pride ourselves on our tourism and visitors coming to this country, and indeed our own people living here, on the clean, green, 100% pure New Zealand image. And in fact, that whole image results in our economy having massive input in terms of tourism and the dollars and the economy that benefits from that tourism and from the funds that flow from our environment. So we cannot risk in any way putting that at risk in terms of Crown minerals being abused or taken in such a manner that would put that environment at great risk. And the last thing I think all New Zealanders, regardless of your political position, regardless of your stance, but I think the last thing that all New Zealanders would want to see would be the image of New Zealand and the wonderful vistas and scenery and the wonderful environment we have and the unique environment in so many ways around New Zealand put at risk because of exploitation and inadequate controls over how minerals would be harvested. So, Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First will be supporting this through to committee stage. We are doing that in order that this gets a full and robust consideration, so that people will have an opportunity to have input on this, the people of New Zealand to have full input on this, and so that basically any of the pitfalls, any of the negative aspects of the bill, any of the risks, or any of the perhaps the oversights that may not have necessarily been included in this do have an opportunity to be fully fleshed out. And I'm sure that our Local Government Environment Committee will put a lot of effort into ensuring that happens, to ensure that the people of New Zealand come out of this and the Crown comes out of this with a very good outcome and an act that is sustainable and has legs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Member Mark Mitchell.